Number 8. Vicki Mayers. Missouri woman Vicki Mayers was flying home out of Sky Harbor Airport on December the 27th of 2021 after spending Christmas in Phoenix, Arizona. The 53-year-old was reportedly intoxicated at the time and as a result became confused about the scheduled departure time for her Spirit Airlines plane. In her disoriented state, Mayers missed her flight's final boarding call. After realizing her mistake, the Creve Coeur resident reportedly made a frantic dash for her gate. Once she got there, she discovered that the door had been closed and all of the passengers had already boarded the plane. Mayers then tried entering a security passcode into the keypad on the door, which ultimately proved unsuccessful. In a desperate last-ditch ploy to catch her flight, the woman reportedly barged through an emergency door and ran down a flight of stairs onto the tarmac. Mayers fruitlessly pleaded with the grounds crew to allow her onto the plane before police arrived at the scene and took her back to the terminal, where she was arrested. She was then booked into the Maricopa County Jail and charged with felony trespassing. A court hearing for the case was scheduled to take place in January of 2022. Number 7. The murder of Juan Anzaldo. Shortly before 9:30 p.m. on November the 19th of 2021, Southwest Airlines employee Juan Anzaldo was walking to his car after completing his shift at the El Paso International Airport in Texas. Once he'd arrived at his vehicle, the 49-year-old reportedly noticed that one of his tires had been slashed and then phoned a co-worker to ask for assistance. During the call, Anzaldo indicated to his colleague that he believed the damage to his car had been caused by his girlfriend's husband, 50-year-old Bernard Walter Kreisman. The co-worker later told investigators that he subsequently heard Anzaldo arguing with another man before loudly crying out for help. The call was then cut off, prompting Anzaldo's associate and a nearby witness to rush to his aid in the employee parking lot. Upon their arrival, they noticed a man wearing a dark hoodie fleeing the scene. One of the witnesses stayed with Anzaldo, who'd been left critically injured by an altercation with the male suspect. The other reportedly pursued the fleeing man, who eventually got away in a gray pickup truck. Anzaldo passed away from blunt force trauma to the head as a result of the attack. During the ensuing investigation, the police were able to positively identify Kreisman as Anzaldo's assailant, and he was consequently arrested and charged with murder. It later emerged that the victim had been having an affair with the suspect's wife for more than a year prior to the incident. Kreisman's bail was reportedly set at $1.25 million. Number 6. The Miami Airport Brawl. On April the 25th of 2021, a brawl broke out at an American Airlines terminal in the Miami International Airport. A video recording of the fight was uploaded to social media by Miami-based documentary filmmaker Billy Corbin. The footage, which went viral following the incident, showed several travelers exchanging vicious blows inside Terminal D near Gate D12. A witness would later tell investigators that the melee had started after an employee stationed at the American Airlines counter notified a group of 4 men that there were only 3 standby seats available for their flight to Chicago, Illinois. The men then began fighting with at least 3 others due to what a police report described as undetermined reasons. The warring groups were captured on video repeatedly punching and kicking each other as bystanders pleaded with them to stop. The fight was eventually broken up by witnesses, at which point the group of 4 men reportedly fled the area. After law enforcement officials arrived at the scene, they located one of the suspects, identified as Jamil Tremaine DeCure, aged 20, at a nearby gate and placed him under arrest. The police reported that an individual who'd been injured during the altercation was treated by fire rescue crews at the scene, but they ultimately decided that they didn't want to press charges against their attackers. Number 5. Carlene Gearing. Las Vegas police officers made their way to McCarran International Airport on September the 28th of 2021 after receiving a call about an unruly traveler. According to the resulting arrest report, the responding officers came upon Carlene Gearing, aged 21, shouting at employees at a Southwest Airlines counter. An airport supervisor later told the authorities that the young woman had reportedly been denied boarding because of her belligerent behavior and wasn't allowed to rebook her flight. The officers attempted to explain the matter to Gearing and de-escalate the situation, but she then shifted her ire towards them. She allegedly started fighting with the officers as they were trying to take her into custody and even spat on them as they attempted to handcuff her. Gearing was then held down and the officers placed a mask over her mouth to prevent her from spitting on them again. The young woman reportedly managed to slip her cuffs multiple times, prompting the police to switch to plastic flex straps to more securely restrain her. Gearing was medically cleared by an ambulance before being booked into Clark County Detention Center on charges of battery on a protected person, resisting a public officer, and violating airport rules and regulations. Number 4. Adriona Adair and Destiny James. Two women were seen beating up an employee at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas, Nevada on the afternoon of January the 6th of 2022. The suspects were later named as 26-year-old Adriona Adair and Destiny James, aged 29. According to eyewitness testimony, the women assaulted a Spirit Airlines employee in the baggage claim area of the airport for reasons not immediately reported in the incident's aftermath. Upon the arrival of law enforcement, Adair and James allegedly attempted to leave the scene in defiance of the officer's insistence that they stand by while the situation was being investigated. The officer stopped them and then reportedly told the women to wait near the baggage carousel. When the suspects refused to comply once again, the officer called for backup and the women were taken into custody. Police later learned that the unidentified victim of the women's attack was taken to a hospital with lacerations to her eye. Adair and James were consequently charged with resisting a public officer and violation of airport conduct. They were scheduled to appear in court on March the 3rd of 2022. Number 3. Chloe Morozak. On August the 23rd of 2021, Illinois woman Chloe Morozak arrived in Oahu, Hawaii, via a Southwest Airlines flight. In order to circumvent the state's mandatory 10-day quarantine for unvaccinated travelers, the 24-year-old presented a COVID-19 vaccination card to a screener at the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. Morozak quickly became the target of an investigation by the Hawaii Safe Travels Program, which identified a number of suspicious details on the young woman's vaccination card that suggested it might have been falsified. Tom George, a reporter for KITV4 ABC in Hawaii, posted a picture of Morozak's card on Twitter and indicated it contained a number of noticeable spelling errors, including the words Moderna, Delaware, and Maryland. Safe Travels administrators subsequently contacted the hotel where Morozak claimed to be staying, but employees notified them that there were no reservations under the young woman's name. It was also discovered that Delaware officials had no records of a Chloe Morozak getting vaccinated in the state. The quarantine compliance check team then set out to locate the suspect, which they successfully did on August the 28th, when she came back to the airport for her return flight to Illinois. Morozak was arrested in front of the Southwest Airlines counter and charged with falsifying vaccination documents. She was transported to the Queens Health Care Center for a COVID screening before being booked at the Honolulu police station. Her bail was reportedly set at $2,000. Today's topic was requested by the J Moore 88, Rara 36, and Moi FTC. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. The Atlanta Accidental Gun Discharge. A bag was searched by security officials at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on November the 20th of 2021 after an X-ray machine had identified a prohibited item inside of it. TSA agents reportedly told the passenger not to touch their property while they carried out the inspection. As the officer opened the bag, however, the traveler lunged forward and reached inside to grab the firearm that had been flagged by security. During the ensuing struggle with the agents, the gun was accidentally discharged, prompting the passenger to flee the airport. The inadvertent gunshot caused a panic among other nearby travelers, many of whom were captured on video screaming and running away from the area where the shot had been fired. The TSA posted an update on the situation to their social media accounts, in which they clarified that there was no active shooter on the premises, as had been rumored following the onset of mass hysteria in the airport. Authorities implemented a ground stop at the airport in order to allow Atlanta police to investigate the incident further. It was ultimately determined that 3 individuals had sustained non-fatal injuries as a result of the stampede of fleeing passengers, but no one was wounded by the gunshot itself. Number 1. The Fort Lauderdale Airport shooting. At about 12:53 p.m. on January the 6th of 2017, gunfire erupted near the baggage claim in Terminal 2 at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. in Broward County, Florida. The ensuing frenzy of travelers attempting to flee the scene as gunshots rang out was captured on video. It later emerged that false reports of additional gunshots in other areas of the airport had sparked a panic in adjacent terminals as well. The shots reportedly continued for 70 to 80 seconds, after which the gunman, identified as 31-year-old Esteban Santiago Ruiz, laid down on the floor having run out of ammunition. Broward County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the scene and arrested Santiago Ruiz without further incident. In the wake of the shooting, the Federal Aviation Administration issued a ground stop notice, which closed the airport to all but emergency flights. It was reported that a total of 5 people had been fatally shot and another 6 suffered non-lethal gunshot wounds. Sheriff Scott Israel stated that between 30 and 40 other travelers were injured in the consequent chaos. In his interviews with investigators, Santiago Ruiz allegedly claimed that he'd been under government mind control and had been hearing voices leading up to the shooting. While in custody, Santiago Ruiz was diagnosed with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. After he was prescribed psychotropic medication, he was deemed legally competent to stand trial. In May of 2018, Santiago Ruiz agreed to a plea deal with prosecutors that sentenced him to life in prison in lieu of the death penalty. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be stuck at an airport on Christmas or have to spend an entire week inside a shopping mall? Let us know in the comments section below.